Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the TechGig webinar. Thank you for joining the session today. The topic of today's webinar is Continuous Testing for Mobile Apps on Real Devices, New World Paradigm. It will be a 1-hour session with around 40 to 45 minutes for the presentation and the remaining 15 minutes for the Q&A. So if you have any questions, please send them to us using the Questions tab on the GoToWebinar control panel. I'm Sabah, the moderator of this session, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our guest speaker, Mr. Avinash Tiwari, co-founder pCloudy.com, part of Smart Software Testing Solutions India Private Limited. Avinash has 15 plus years of experience in product development and testing. Avinash is currently based out of Bangalore and is alumnus of IIT and MIT Sloan. So without any further delay, let me introduce you all to our guest speaker. Over to you, Avinash.
Thank you, Sabah. Thanks for the introduction and facilitating this webinar. A very warm welcome to everyone from my side as well. And I'm really happy to see such large number of attendees, a large variety of people joining this webinar and showing interest in this topic. So thanks again to all of you for joining in. And I'm sure we are going to have an enriching session. Though this webinar does not allow interactive discussion, but you can share your thoughts in the panel suggested by Sabah, and I'll put it together and share it with all of you after the session maybe. So the idea is to have a collective discussion around this topic. So let me start by introducing ourselves, who we are. So pCloudy.com is one of its kind cloud-based mobile app testing platform for dev and testing community. With 500 plus Android and iOS devices which exist on our cloud, we are one of the largest mobile device cloud across the world, and we are one of the first to offer this service from Indian market. So we are very proud of that fact. As of now, more than 7,000 plus developers and testers from across the globe rely on us to test their apps on daily basis. Not only that, a lot of industry analysts from across the globe have shown their trust, and they have featured us in various reports and forums, and Gartner is one of those. So, having done the intro, let me give you a sense of what this topic is all about. So, you have read in the webinar summary that we shared. The topic is all about continuous testing of mobile apps on real devices, which is the new world paradigm these days. So what I'm going to do here is I'll try to decipher this topic for all of you in 3 different areas. The first part is a general understanding of why mobile apps are so important these days and some of the key trends in the world today. The second part, which is of the main focus for us, is understanding this continuous world that you might be sharing again and again within your organization from industry experts. So we'll try to delve deep into it and understand what this continuous world is all about. And the third is trying to understand the continuous paradigm in the context of mobile app and the new world paradigm that we are talking about. So we'll try to gel both the things and see what is the role of testing in the context of mobile app and continuous paradigm. So that's how I'm going to shape this session from now on. So great, we're all set now, and let's start understanding the first piece of puzzle, what's happening in the mobile app space. So I'm sure you all would have heard of the digital transformation wave, and you must be aware of this wave that is shown on the presentation here. So it all started with invention of mobile internet a couple of decades back. But the real boom happened in the digital space with the rise of mobile internet, with the rise of a number of mobile devices in the world. And now this wave is pushing us towards digital economy, right? And needless to say that this term has become so popular in last 2 months, especially in India. I don't tend to mention the event, but we all are part of it, and we all are seeing this whole transformation in the digital economy. Now, this means that we all are going to make most of our digital decisions from a mobile device, which means whether we are doing our payments, whether we are buying a service, and service could be even as small as ordering a coffee to buying a computer from the internet. So all the decisions that we are going to take is happening and more and more from the mobile device and from the apps. So mobile apps are going to be everywhere. Now the second wave, the mobile internet wave, is still going on, and it's expanding the economy, expanding the digital economy that we just talked about. Parallelly, the third wave has already started, which is the rise of IoT devices. And I'm particularly interested, considering the field that I am in, IoT in the consumer space, which is still a laggard compared to the industrial IoT. But what I am seeing, or what I'm hearing from the experts, is as more and more common standards are emerging around IoT, consumer IoT is going to take off very, very quickly. So you are already seeing the rise of devices like smart homes, smart fitness, smart watches. A lot of smart devices are coming into play. So that's going to give us next level of growth. And again, mobile apps are going to be central to it. So all the smart devices in some way will be communicating to a mobile app. So here also mobile apps are going to be prevalent. And the third wave, and one of the biggest innovations happening right now in the world, is in the space of artificial intelligence. And what we are seeing right now is it will lead to a world where everything around us will become a smart device, and these devices can actually understand the context and behavior and act accordingly. And Google Home, if you have seen the videos and if you have seen the features that it offers, is just a starting point. So we'll be all connected to devices around us, and we can interact with those devices without physically accessing it. By just talking to those devices, the devices can understand what our needs are, and then they can act accordingly. So that's the next wave of digital transformation that will happen in the next 5 to 10 years. So with this context in terms of what's happening in the mobile space, I just want to summarize that mobile apps are going to be extremely important for all the organizations going forward. And as an individual, we all need to be equipped and skilled to handle this new level of growth that will come across all of us. So this was a first piece of puzzle that I wanted to cover as part of this topic. Now, let's move to the second piece of puzzle. This is all about understanding what is this continuous world. Right? Continuous has become one of the most popular words in the new world paradigm of app development. So what does it really mean? Now, at the fundamental level, every organization going through this continuous journey is looking to deliver software releases or software updates to users on a near constant basis, which means that as and when updates or releases are ready, it should reach to the users. Unlike traditional approaches where there are monthly or quarterly planned scheduled releases, we are talking about a situation where we are kind of all releasing updates almost on daily or weekly basis, depending on the organization's business. So that's the fundamental objective of the continuous world that we are talking about. Now, there are three frequently used terms in this context, and I'm going to explain all these one by one. So first important term is continuous delivery. So in the continuous delivery, the crux is the code is built, integrated, tested, and pushed to a production-like environment on a continuous basis. So it could be daily, it could be weekly. That depends on the organization's preference. But as and when developers are ready with a particular feature, it should become production deployment ready. That's the objective of continuous delivery. So if you look at this diagram, there are certain phases defined from unit test to platform test to deliver to staging. All these stages listed here are completely automated. So transition from one stage to other stage happen completely in an automated way, except you see a red box here which says manual. So in the continuous delivery, in a lot of times organizations want to retain the control of pushing the release to production in more of manual way, right? Rest everything is completely automated, and this is where continuous delivery differs from continuous deployment. So if you look at the next diagram, the only change is the deployment to production is also automated here. So as and when the code is ready, tested on an internal staging or UAT environment, and that we'll see later in more detail, the code can be automatically pushed to production. So this becomes a continuous deployment. So you will see a lot of people using this term interchangeably, continuous delivery and continuous deployment, but it's very important to differentiate between, differentiate the minor difference that these two terms have. But in a nutshell, both the terminologies are referred in the context of ensuring that the code is always production ready. Now the core of these two, continuous delivery and continuous deployment aspect, is a process called continuous integration. Without continuous integration, you can't achieve any of these. Now, in a very narrow sense, continuous integration means integration of changes to an application at all stages of delivery chain, and that's what we just saw in the diagram. We are seeing from one stage to other stage completely in an automated way. Now, this happens through continuous integration servers. You might have heard terms like Jenkins and Bamboo. So basically, a continuous integration server automatically tests code written by individual developers to make sure that it can be merged into the main code at any point of time. So we'll see this process more in depth as we move forward, but I hope you have kind of got a sense of what these three terms are all about and what the differences are, and where do these terms fit in maybe in your organization and in your app development cycle. So let me just drill down further. So let's quickly understand the continuous process a little bit more in detail. We just talked about continuous integration servers, we introduced a lot of terms. So let's just quickly see what this continuous process is all about. So you can imagine a scenario within your app development cycle where developers are developing their code on a local development environment, and they will have their own code branches where they can commit the code. Now, as soon as they commit the code, there should be an automated review process which gives a feedback to the customer, to the developer, in terms of whether the code is ready for next level push, or developer can start fixing that. So that's the first level of automation which happens in a continuous process in terms of continuous review as soon as the developer pushes the code to his or her own branch. Now, second stage comes when the developer has passed the code review stage, and then there is a CI server which is sitting, which is continuously detecting whether there is any change in the code branch from any developer. It picks up the code, it deploys the code in form of a build, or it creates a build, and it checks whether the build is successful or not. And based on that, there is a feedback loop again to the developer. Now, this is extremely significant for the fact that this is where it gets decided whether all the codes can be merged together and is there any integration problem in the code. Now, once this is successful, it means the code is perfectly integrable and it is ready for the next level of push. Now, the next level of push is done automatically by a CI server to a QA or staging environment, depending on the organization's preference. And once the build is pushed to the QA or staging in an automated way, the QA process starts. In an ideal scenario, the QA process has to be completely automated, but it could be a mix of manual and automated. But in a true CI scenario, it has to be completely automated. So the QA feedback, based on the QA feedback, whether it's pass or fail, again, there is a feedback to the developer. So all the bugs from the QA automated results will go back to the developer, and the same cycle will be followed till we have seen so far. Moving forward in this whole process, depending on whether the QA stage is pass or fail, CI server is updated, and based on that, that code or that build is pushed to the main line, which can be further pushed to the production environment, which could be in mobile app, it could be App Store, Play Store, or in a normal web app kind of scenario, it could be the web server, etc. So on the app, on the production environment also, there has to be automated production test. It could be a kind of sanity test which needs to be run, and there again there is a feedback loop in terms of whether it's a successful or bad release to the production. So this process that you have seen at a high level defines what this continuous process is. So as you can see, at each step there is an automated process to push the code from one phase to other, and there is an automated way of validating that change without much of manual intervention. So that's the crux of this overall continuous process. We'll come back to this again in the context of mobile app, but let's just talk about the third piece of the puzzle. So this is what was the second piece of the puzzle. What is the continuous paradigm? Now we'll just quickly see what is the role of testing in a mobile app journey, and that's the third piece of puzzle I want to talk about. So if you look at this diagram again, here it just depicts a journey of a mobile app development from start to end. And if you can see that the typical phases are starting from the business requirement gathering to prototyping, and then once the prototype is ready, it goes through the UX design, app development, backend integration, etc. And this is where the continuous development testing happens, what we just saw, and finally deployment. Now, at each stage of either prototyping or UX design or app development, there are two key asks by each of the stakeholders, be it the design team or the development team or the testing team, is the availability of physical devices, and second is effective automation tool which can automate the process, because we just discussed that for continuous world to be successful, automation is one of the key aspects. So device plus automated tool, device infrastructure and automated tool are the two key pieces of the overall mobile app testing journey. Without that, continuous mobile app testing will not be possible. So having said that, and having talked about what the key needs are, we'll quickly go back to the earlier flow that we were looking at as to what the continuous testing is. And what I want to just quickly depict is what it means in terms of mobile app, what this flow means in terms of mobile app, and what are the asks by different stakeholders that we just discussed. So the first ask is by the development team, because as and when they are developing, they need to test their APKs or IPAs on variety of devices before they can actually check in the code. So they need access of devices for debugging, and they need to write their unit test for automated check-in of their code to the developer branch and for further push to CI. So the devices and a unit test framework is extremely important at the development stage. Now, second phase comes when there is an automated QA happening in the QA and staging environment. So at this stage again, device becomes one of the key needs, and since QA has to do testing across a large set of devices, so for them the need of devices are much greater than what a developer will ask for. So again, automated test along with the right device infrastructure is one of the asks by the QA teams. And lastly, at the production stage, where there has to be automated check of the quality of the push on the production, here also the automated tests and devices are required. So summarizing what we just discussed in terms of the importance of apps, in terms of the continuous process, and in terms of the asks by different stakeholders in the mobile app journey, I have just tried to put down all the asks at one place. So what are the key needs in this overall mobile DevOps journey? The first is a right device infrastructure to the teams. And when I say right device infrastructure, means a variety of devices depending on the kind of application that you are developing. The second is, especially in larger organizations, the teams are sitting at different locations. Your dev team could be at one place, your testing team could be at other place, your design team could be at other place, and everyone should be able to access the devices or the lab from anywhere, anytime. So that's the second need. And third is, we talked about use of automation, and a continuous process cannot be successful without effective use of automation. So one important task is how do we maximize the automation process in this whole journey. And lastly, how do we reduce the dev and test feedback by using the continuous deployment and continuous test runs. So we just saw what the continuous process is. So the mobile app journey has to follow that process also. So these are the key challenges or the asks that the teams have in the mobile app journey when they have to follow the continuous testing in their organizations. So with this background, what I'll move to is a real life example from Facebook. I'm sure you all must be using the app. It's one of the most downloaded and most frequently used app in the world. Now, you can imagine the user base for Facebook. There are tens of thousands of different mobile devices on which Facebook has to work, and they have to ensure that it works smoothly on all kinds of devices in different countries, different geographies. How do they ensure that? So to cover the challenge that they are facing in terms of ensuring that their app runs on all kinds of devices in the world, Facebook has created an in-house mobile device lab with 2,000 devices connected to their servers. And you can see one of the images that they have published. It's an open article that they have written. You can go and read about it in TechCrunch and other forums. These are the racks in which devices are connected. So each rack connects to 32 devices, and they have more than 60 racks in the data center with 2,000 devices at a time available for their developers and testers. And this is how, this is one key element for them to ensure that whenever there are developers or engineers are making any change to their mobile app, it gets automatically tested on a large variety of devices in the data center, and it can be tested for the functionality, it can be tested for the performance, crashes, all kind of feedback is given to the developers immediately. And it's all through the automated test which they have created and which are run on the real devices. So the continuous process that we just talked about, again, I want to emphasize that the two key elements of that process is having a right device infrastructure and having right set of automated tools in place. And you can see that from the Facebook example. And a lot of now organizations have started following this practice. Now, Facebook has the ability to create an in-house device lab, but a lot of organizations who cannot afford to create in-house device lab, they use the cloud solutions like pCloudy that I'll cover quickly in detail as part of real-life demo. So this covers the first part of the session where I wanted to talk about the importance of mobile apps, what the continuous testing process is within the context of mobile app, and what are the challenges. Now let's see how are we solving these challenges with a platform like pCloudy. Now it can also be solved with a combination of a lot of other tools. You might be already using some tools for the aspects that we just talked about, but I'm going to show you in the context of pCloudy how are we solving it. So to do that, I'll get into a real demo mode. I'll show it through a few videos that I have created. So for people who have not used pCloudy so far, I'll take a few moments to give you a quick intro. So pCloudy, as I said, is an online device cloud, can be accessed by using this URL device.pcloudy.com and having a subscription. Someone who wants to try can quickly go and do a sign up. There's a free trial available, and that trial can be used to see what the cloud is all about. So once I log into the cloud as a user, as a developer or a tester, I can access a variety of devices which are available on the platform. So you can see all the devices currently shown on this page here, and these devices can be filtered by operating systems, Android and iOS. We can see it by manufacturers, we can see it by screen sizes, network, and also by device locations. So we have locations across India, Philippines, and US. So I can choose a device for my testing, and then I can connect to a specific device where I want to continue my testing. So I have connected to a device here, and then on this device I can control it the way I control it a physical device. So it's a real live access of a physical device through a web interface. So on the left side you have various options which can be used to control a device and perform various testing activities. On the right side are some of the reporting options like log and performance. On the top there are some quick actions that we can do. So let's see how quickly can we install an app. So here we are installing an APK on the device. The APK is Zomato, which is a known application in India. I just installed this application on the device, and while I have installed this application, I can parallelly see what the device log is. I can also see what is the performance of this application in terms of memory usage, in terms of CPU usage, in terms of battery consumption, and in terms of network data transfer. So there are various features which can be used while one is testing their app. Similarly, apart from app, we can also test mobile web application on the platform on different browsers. So I am opening here pcloudy.com on the Chrome browser on this device, and once this web application is open, I can change the orientation, see the responsiveness of the website on this device, and I can perform any kind of testing. So that's in a nutshell, what at a very high level the platform is just a quick intro of it. But my focus is to show you how do we use the platform in the context of the continuous testing that we just talked about. So in that context, I want to first talk about how can we use pCloudy in the development stage. And in the development stage, we talked about how can we use the devices for debugging and running the unit tests. So let's see that. Let's see that live. So I'm again switching back to the video here, and let's just start looking at how do we use the pCloudy platform in a development stage. So what you see here is my Eclipse interface here, sorry, Android Studio interface here, where I am developing an application, and I want to deploy this application on a specific device and also debug it at the same time by putting it my breakpoints and see where the errors are. I want to go through this step. So I'm using a pCloudy plugin which sits inside Android Studio, and it gives me an interface to access all the devices which are available on cloud. So though the devices are on cloud, I can access it within my IDE, which is Android Studio in this case. So I'm connecting to one device which is Swipe Elite Plus. So once I have got the URL of the device, I'm just adding that to my command prompt, and you can see the device is now connected to my machine here. So parallelly, I can also see the device just next to the Android Studio screen, and now I am ready to deploy my application on the device and do the debugging. So if I just click on the select deployment target, I can actually see the device which I just accessed from the cloud. So this device is directly available on cloud, and I'm directly connecting to this device from my IDE interface. So once I do that, you can see here the app is getting installed on the device, and I can see that happening. And now I can go through my breakpoints that I have put in the code. So I can navigate on the application, perform certain operations, and then it will take me to the first breakpoint that I have added in the code. And then I can debug, go through the next steps as part of debugging process, and then see what the logs are, whatever breakpoints that I have put, I can monitor. All the steps can be performed. So this is how, in a short way, pCloudy can be used in the development stage, where developers can access all variety of devices which are available in cloud within their IDE interface itself. So what I'm showing right now is my Espresso code, which is my unit test that I have created. I want to run this unit test on a device to validate my code or my tests. So this is again a very simple process where I am running this Espresso code directly on the connected device that we just saw, and this test will run on the device, and I'll get the report back in my IDE interface itself. So as you can see, now the test is running on the device, and on the left side in the IDE, I can see the real-time status of what is being executed, which is being, so green means pass. All the tests that I have created is, the status is getting changed in real time. And I can run on one device, I can run on parallel devices as well. And there are no limitations to number of devices which you can choose to run. So this gives a real power to developers to really execute their unit tests on a large set of devices together. So this is the first stage of the continuous testing process that we talked about, where a platform like pCloudy or any online device cloud can be used by developers when they are doing the coding, as well as when they have to push the code to the their branches. So moving to the next part of the process, the second part was creating the functional automated test which can be run on the QA and staging environment. And as I mentioned at that point of time, the most of the test has to be automated for the continuous testing to be successful. Let's see how do we do it in the context of pCloudy. Can we create functional tests along with the development which is happening, and how easy or how quick we can do that. So let's see the automation part of it. So what you see here and what I'm showing here right now is the automation engine which is built inside pCloudy in form of a plugin. So if I start using the recorder that is part of the automation engine, I can quickly create my test on my Android or iOS applications. So you can see here I'm going to the recorder, it's asking me to create an object repository where the objects will be stored, and then I can choose to record on the cloud devices from pCloudy. So this screen gives access of all the cloud devices from pCloudy, where I can choose any device for the recording purpose. And once I select it, I have to choose the application and the device on which I want to perform the recording. Then it opens an interface where device and the recorder pane is shown side by side. And now whatever action I performed on the device, for example, I can do my manual test and parallelly the complete script can be recorded. So as soon as the first version of the application is ready, one can quickly create the automation scripts side by side in a very, very simple, easy to use way. And you can see here, I am executing my test case by going through the flow, selecting various options, inserting values. All that is getting captured in form of a recording. Once I'm done with my manual testing on the device or navigating through the application, I can see the complete script inside my automation engine in form of a very simple to understand language, which we call it keyword driven. And this can, as I said, this does not require any understanding of coding language or any technology understanding to create this script. So now the script is created. It can be enhanced for any operations like data-driven tests or making changes, putting logics. All that can be done inside the script. But for simplicity, I'm just running it on the multiple devices together. The script that I just created, I can quickly run it on multiple devices. So I'm just creating a test suite. And once that test suite is ready, I'm selecting pCloudy for the execution purpose to access all the devices. And once I do the basic configuration here, it will take me to the device cloud where I can access all the devices. So you can see here again we are back to the screen where all the devices are available, and here I have an option to add as many devices as I want for my testing purpose. So in this case we have selected 2 devices, and then we can just click to complete the configuration and it will start the execution. And once the execution is happening, you can start monitoring the test result inside this interface along with the screenshot of each of the steps. So this gives the ability to QA team to quickly create the automation test as soon as the app is given to them, and make sure that the large part of the app is automated, which can be used for the CI purposes. So that was the second part of the overall process that we initially talked about. And last and the third part is how do we link it all with the CI server? Because we saw as part of the continuous process that every time the build is pushed to CI server deploys it to the environment. On that environment, the test has to run automatically. So how do we link it all to a CI server is the next piece that I wanted to cover, and which is the last piece. So for that, we'll see starting from Jenkins, and I've taken Jenkins as an example, but any build system can be used. It can be Bamboo, it can be some other commercial solution as well, Hudson, etc. So now what we are doing here is we are creating a new project for test execution from Jenkins, which will allow us to trigger the automated test as soon as there is a new build which is created within the Jenkins. So I'm not going into that aspect, how a build process is automated. I'm showing you here how do we link the automated test when the build is created. So pCloudy provides a Jenkins plugin which can be installed within the Jenkins environment, and as you can see, once you install the plugin, you'll start seeing this option, execute test suite on pCloudy. So if I select this option, it gives me a UI kind of interface within Jenkins where I can actually select, where I can actually provide the credentials. So I want to run it on the cloud, my login credentials. Then it is asking me to select the devices on which the test should run. So I can actually pre-configure the set of devices on which this test should run always when the build is created or when the build is deployed. And once that is done, once that configuration is done, every time the build happens, the test will trigger from the Jenkins server. And there is a interesting feature in pCloudy where the live execution can also be viewed in the web interface itself, but that's not mandatory. In case of Jenkins integrations, it will happen offline, and you'll get the status back in Jenkins itself, and based on that, the next step will trigger. So this was the last step as to how do we link the automation projects to the CI server in the context of mobile app testing that we talked about. So now, just the last word from my side, where I want to sum it all, what we talked about in this last 40-45 minutes. So one central point is mobile apps are going to be a key piece of any digital transformation project within organizations. Be it large or small, every organization will have important element where their businesses will run or will depend on mobile apps. And in case of mobile apps, since we are talking about sending updates to the customer on regular basis, and that's one way to compete in the market, the traditional testing is not sufficient. And the modern way where organizations have started working on is using the continuous testing process. And in that context, the two key elements are use of right device cloud infrastructure. It could be a local lab, it could be a cloud lab, but a right device infrastructure which can be used to run automated tests on large set of devices are extremely important. So with that note, with that summary, I'll open the session for question and answer. Over to you, Sabha.
Thanks for the insightful presentation. Let's quickly take up the questions now. They are displaying in the question panel.
Okay. Thank you so much. There are a large number of questions that I have got. I'll try to pick few considering the time limit that we have, but I'll ensure that I'll answer each of the questions separately in offline mode by directly sending you an individual email. So let me just read out the first question. So the first question is from Naga Vamsidhar. What are the drawbacks of testing mobile apps on simulators instead of real devices? Does not the testing cost go up, whatever may be the approach or strategy to test teams on real physical devices? Yeah, I mean, the organizations have been using simulators or emulators, but it has been proven by many research or studies that testing on simulator is not enough. And the kind of bug that you get in production cannot be detected by testing on simulators. A piece of functional testing can definitely be performed on simulators or emulators, but if you're talking about real crash testing, which are dependent on the hardware, which are dependent on the memory, sometimes camera, the hardware integration, or the performance issues, those cannot be detected on a simulator or emulator. So rather than spending effort twice, first testing on simulator or emulator and then on real device later on, if we can access a cloud which gives you a cost-effective way of testing on real devices, that's the way to go. And the cost right now in these days is not that much. You can explore that option. Some other questions. Why 2 CI servers are required by Saurabh Garg? So I'm not sure why. I didn't show 2 CI servers. It was the same CI servers shown in 2 different stages. So there is only 1 CI server is required. However, there could be multiple agents depending on the developers' machines, etc. But again, depending on the size of the organization and the volume of the app, these things are decided. But 1 also is good enough. Then there is another question from Vinay Mehta. Can I choose multiple devices to test my app, or I have to do it one by one through ID? No, I mean, as part of the demo, I showed it on 1 devices, but the real power comes when you can test the application on multiple devices, and that's perfectly feasible. The next question is from Prakash Inani. Does functional test script support accessibility also for app which needs to go out of app screen to accessibility for testing? So there is a part of accessibility which can be automated. Of course, there are some additional tools to test the accessibility of apps. I can share more details with you offline. And these tools can be used in conjunction with the functional tool to perform the accessibility testing. Then there is a next question from Rahul Kumar. Will the platform give access to hardware information like EMEI number if the mobile app is to be bound to a handset? Yes. In our case, as I mentioned, these are the real devices which users are accessing it from the web. So users have full control on the device. They can access the full settings. They can access EMEI, the SIM numbers, phone numbers. It's perfectly feasible. The next question is from Sambhu Das. Can we debug a web page like we do on desktop? Yes. So pCloudy has a integration with Chrome debugger tool. So you can use Chrome debugger in parallel to the device. So you open your web application or hybrid application on the device, and then open Chrome debugger and start inspecting the elements and do all kind of debugging which Chrome debugger allows. So there are questions around cost, which I'll not take up right now. I'll share those details later on. There are also some questions around competitor information. Again, I'll skip that as part of this discussion. Then there is a question from AK Prabhu, how to run an Appium or Calabas test in pCloudy. So pCloudy has full integration with tests like Appium, Calabas, Espresso. So I can share more details as to how to use it, but you can use any of these tests on multiple devices together. The next question is around from Sajid. Can I test application which is developed in Titanium? How can I pull that from Google Play into pCloudy? So I'm not very sure as of now. I'll check that and come back to you. The next question is from Vipul Kumar. Is pCloudy provides simulator for testing on multiple devices, or it provides real devices? So pCloudy is all about real devices, and I said that in the beginning when I was answering the other question, that emulator testing is not enough, and that's why we have created this platform for users to get access of large variety of devices at a very cost-effective rate. So our platform is all about real devices. The last question, considering the time frame that we have, I'll take it up, and then rest of it I'll answer through an email, sending it individually to the people. So last question that I want to take up is, once we install the app again after testing, what will happen to the build created? So on pCloudy, we delete the app as soon as the testing session is over. I'm not sure whether that's the question. I'll take up one more question. How is continuous testing different from others, by Sachin Tyagi? So, I mean, if you look at any traditional method where we have waterfall or maybe some of the other sprint-based methodologies, the difference between continuous testing and other models is that you wait for a particular time for your code to be integrated into the main system. So maybe, for example, you are following a 2-week time cycle where first development happens and then testing happens. So you start integrating your code in the main branch after 2 weeks. And if there is an integration failure, then the cost of solving that becomes very high. In case of continuous testing or continuous integration, to be more precise, the developers are pushing the code to the main branch as soon as their code, as soon as their part of code is ready. It could be a feature, it could be a bug fix, and as soon as they pass the automated test for the phase that they are in, it could be unit test, it could be code revision test. So as soon as that happens, the code gets pushed to the main branch and the build is created. So which ensures that there is no integration issue. That's one of the biggest advantage of, or biggest difference between continuous testing and other form of testing. So with that, I'll end this session. Sabha, over to you. And thanks again for everyone for this interactive session in terms of the kind of question that you asked. I'll try to get in touch with all of you, whoever has posted the questions. I'll share the answers individually. Thank you so much again.
Thanks a lot, Avinash, for this really empowering and motivating session today. I would also like to thank all our participants for making this webinar a great success. This webinar has been recorded and the recording will soon be available on techig.com. Thank you everyone for joining us.